Hello, welcome to the third full episode of Military English Made Easy. This week, as promised, we'll be focusing on the subject of Brexit, because last week we had Scottish independence, so two closely related topics. And apart from that, of course, we'll continue with the differences between this time level 2 and 3 in terms of the speaking exam. So, before we go to that, shortly about this week's topic, Brexit. It's been going on for some time now, and we're getting close to the halfway line in terms of the UK really leaving the European Union. For a short period of time, some people in the UK and some people in Europe maybe, they were still hoping that there will be a second referendum made by London, just to give the people one more chance to actually show what they want. But the whole idea was stopped somewhere midway due to the fact that London said eventually people voted once, so that's what they want. So that's what possibly they want. It doesn't matter that just before the first referendum, the whole campaign on going out was made not entirely true to some of the facts. That made some of the people vote in the way they voted, so they opted out. The difference between going out and staying in was more or less about 10%. So it was larger, but the whole number of people, the percentage of people that attended the vote, was slightly lower than what we presented last week, because in Scottish independence it was about 85%. Here it was somewhere in the region of above 70. So a large number of people attended, but still it wasn't as high as in the Scottish referendum. So the people voted out, and now the whole government, as you remember from all the medias, we watched it from different points of view, from the British point of view, from Polish point of view, from the European Union one. What is really going on? They started to negotiate a deal of a walkout, which eventually hit a brick wall, or even a concrete wall at some point, since the European Union wasn't keen enough to negotiate certain deals, especially the ways the UK wanted it to go. Because as any single country would have done, the UK opted for an option, a very good deal for them, not such a good deal for the European Union, so that's why they hit a concrete wall. At the moment, with half year to go, because they will be going out on the 1st of January 2021, the situation hit another problem, which was the negotiations hit another problem, which was, of course, the pandemic, which affected all of us. Therefore, the meetings, the bilateral meetings between UK and EU had to be shorted, postponed in some areas. They are still going on, but not at the same speed both sides would have wanted. And because of that, we actually don't know at the moment what's going to happen, if it's going to be a hard Brexit or a soft exit. If it's going to be hard, it's going to hit British economy pretty badly, at least in the first half of the next year. That's why the army started to gather supplies of things that might be on shortage in the stores. So, for example, bottled water, although I don't know why, because you can drink water from a tap in the UK, so there is not such of a shortage of water. Medicine, the supplies of first need, some supplies in terms of food. So they are preparing for the worst scenario. This is of course a good thing, because always you have to prepare for the worst possible scenario. If it's going to be a soft exit, we'll see in the developing months what the UK managed to negotiate. Of course, for us sitting here in Poland, for the ones who don't have close families staying in the UK, this doesn't affect us slightly. Because even if you wanted to go to work in the UK after Brexit, you'll still be able to. It will be a bit more difficult, because you'll have to gather more information, give more information about yourself, sign a lot more documents. So in that way it's going to be difficult, but not impossible. If you're going as a tourist, it won't be slightly difficult. The hotels, the museums, the boarding houses, hostels, the tourist boards will still be operating. That I say meaning if the whole pandemic will pass through the UK as well. So when things will return to normal. But as I say, for us, not such a big difference. For the people staying there, they had and they still do have a period of time where they can sign in as being something of a permanent resident from outside the UK, who will stay in the UK and will work there for a very or indefinite time, for a long time or indefinite time. So the UK still gives an option for all the people, not only Polish people, but Czech, Lithuanians, Romanians, Bulgarians, German, Spanish and so on, because everybody has to sign it, not only the Central or Eastern European countries. So this is in some way a good thing, because they are given an option. The people who are from far-right parties or supporters of the far-right parties opted for a more gruesome kind of deal, meaning that all the immigrants will have to leave. They of course forgot that a lot of people that are now staying in the UK or have a UK citizenship are coming as far as India, South Africa, Canada, former colonies, Australia and so on. Middle East as well. So throwing everybody out would mean that there would be no one to work in certain sectors of the so-called economy. And therefore an economic crisis is inevitable in that option. So they are trying to ease the situation as possible, in at least in the terms of the immigration. If it goes for the borders, basically two options are available. So you have the option when the border will be closed, so no kind of Schengen type of movement as it was, or the borders will be opened, at least for inner European Union movement, but you have to have a passport, you have to write maybe a declaration of some sorts when entering the UK for either working, living or a tourist purpose. We'll find out in a couple of months. Nonetheless, in terms of positives and negatives, you have to take into consideration 2 points of view, so the European Union point of view and the UK point of view. For the UK, leaving the EU is of course more money staying within the UK itself, but then they have to put that money that they manage to save from not giving directly to the European Union countries they have to give to people who lost on European Union donations. So, for example, like in farming, that's what we take a lot of money from the European Union for farming, for agriculture. So this is clearly both a pro and a con. Another con is what I said, a possibility of a second Scottish referendum and further turmoils on British soil as such. Another con is the situation about the borders, especially between Ireland and Northern Ireland. So, from my point of view, my personal point of view, there are more cons than pros. Of course, I'm not a UK citizen, so and I didn't watch the whole campaign, only parts of it before the referendum, because the campaign showed only cons, only pros. Sorry, not cons, obviously, because they would have voted to stay in. But it showed a lot of pros, not a lot of cons. And if you show a campaign like this, obviously a lot of people will vote to go out. And that's what happened in the UK, especially for the people who are who don't have a bachelor's degree, they didn't go to the university, they not a lot of went to high school. So for the simple people, which every country has a lot of, that campaign was strictly providing them with information opting to go out. That could be a bit misleading, so that's what I think happened. Nonetheless, the next half a year will show us what will really happen in the UK and in the European Union. So, shortly on the topic, of course, as I said last week, these opinions are my personal ones and not the ones of my military unit or the Ministry of Defense or generally my employer. The second subject for today, the difference between level 2 and level 3 in terms of speaking, the exams that are done in English in Poland. The difference is larger, definitely, than the one between level 1 and 2. In level between those, as you might remember, it was just slightly more difficult topics for discussion. Between level 2 and 3, you have a completely different set of speaking exams. First of all, there is no thing like a warm-up session where you have to spell your name or present yourself in general. You go straight to the topics. So you have either briefings and you have as topic for discussion between you and the examiner, but of course with a higher level of difficulty. But the briefing part is you basically get an information. For example, your military garrison is holding a picnic for the community, and you have to present to the commanding officers your ideas on how it should be run. So you have, of course, a bit of lines as a help. So present the ideas, how the people can get in, what kind of logistics do you need, and so on, so on. So you have to, in about 10 to 15 minutes, prepare yourself and present them as you are presenting it to the leading officers in the garrison or in your unit. This is just one of the examples. You can get the rest by going on to the web page of the army institution that is giving the exams and giving you the courses, and you can download every single year from I think 4 to 5 years back, and just take a look of what topic for briefing you can be asked. Of course, the topics may change, but since you are trying to get onto level 3, you will have to communicate in English, maybe not fluently, but pretty easily, and almost on every single topic. So therefore, you will need to be prepared for this type of exam pretty well. Right. For next week, I'll just shortly mention about level 3 to 4, because not a lot of people are undertaking the 4th level, at least from the ones I know, or the ones I've heard of. But I will shortly try to, I will try to shortly show you the differences, or show you the level of difficulty. As for the topic for next week, will be, because it's the pandemic is still going on, we'll be talking about the pandemics in general. So what's the level of pandemic, what's the security measures that can be undertaken, but I will be speaking, of course, and listening to this subject in English. So for now, that's all for me. Thank you for joining this week. See you next time. Have a nice weekend, and we'll see ourselves next Tuesday. See ya.